Let's see what I got here. So Philip, thank you for welcoming me into your home and for your hospitality. It's a very special honor for me to be able to sit down with you and talk about your extraordinary career and get a glimpse of your perspective of what it is to play music for a living. So I kind of had an idea to divide this whole thing into two segments. Talk a little bit about your past and your rich and diverse history playing music, and then just get into some broad concepts as far as your philosophy of playing and being a musician. So here we'll start in the early days. Your parents, you come from a musical family, and looks like your parents moved from way south of the border up to New York.
Yeah.
Is that right? To Harlem.
Yeah, my parents came from the Caribbean, and I wasn't born yet, but as I saw it when I was born, and I was able to observe the family, people continuously came up to New York, and they moved around the family.
That's right.
They wouldn't move around strangers.
Right.
They had to be family because, of course, they felt they couldn't trust everybody, and family would at least they'll get in friendly arguments, but they would help them if they needed it.
That's right.
So that's what I was born into. I was the firstborn, and we lived in Harlem.
Yeah. So was that the motivation for your parents to first move up to New York? Was some family was already up there?
Yeah, family that was there. Yeah. She had a sister, and her sister had a daughter, things like that.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I became aware and acquainted with the rest of the family. It was a huge family.
Yeah.
Cousins and uncles, and because I had an uncle that, I'm jumping the gun here, but after I started playing, I found out he was a star drummer.
Yeah.
He's the kind of drummer that could flip the sticks and he was something to see.
And was this your Uncle John?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And he taught me the basics of playing.
Yeah.
And until he said when he got through with me, he said, "Well, you ready to go out and play now? I can't teach you anymore. You have to get somebody else,
That's right.
But
I was curious when you first went out to see him play. I imagine he was with a larger band, but is that what attracted you to the drums? Kind of his antics and
But he was playing too. A lot of guys do circus tricks on the drums, but they're not playing like he was.
So the whole deal kind of pulled you in, and you said, "This is what I want to do."
That's right. But he was
incredible.
Excellent.
So I have here, you see your Uncle John playing, and I read that you'd be banging spoons and utensils on the kitchen table, and finally your dad broke down and said, "I'm gonna buy you a drum kit," and took you down to.
Because I had a good dad. It was in the beginning just he and my sister, and being the firstborn. When you were firstborn, you were treated, I think, nobly than the other offspring.
That's right.
Anything I wanted that my father or my mother could afford, I would get it.
Oh, that's beautiful. So they were both your mom and dad were supportive of you becoming a musician and going out and playing.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, not everybody, I guess, is that lucky.
Yeah, I had no problem. My father was a trumpet player too, not professionally, but he could play the trumpet.
Yeah.
He wanted me to play trumpet, but I couldn't take the injury. The injuries that you would get on your lip, your embouchure, that's what they call it, your embouchure. The trumpet players and trombone players, tuba players all have their lips are hard. Louis Armstrong had.
Yeah, I wasn't hip to that term. Yeah, I imagine.
And
it takes its toll.
Yeah, so after maybe 2 or 3, 4 lessons, I told my father I couldn't handle it.
Right,
I couldn't handle the trumpet at all.
So more motivation to play the drums,
Yeah.
and so he took you to the Wurlitzer music store. And was that downtown or in Harlem?
Yeah, they had one in Harlem.
Because I'm familiar with the Wurlitzer keyboard.
Yeah. Have you ever been in Harlem?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was 125th Street.
Okay.
Between 7th and 8th Avenues. You know?
Okay.
And they would. I've never seen this before, but they had a sales pitch. They let you the kid could have a set of drums and 10 lessons for X amount of dollars. And if your kid decided to play guitar after that period was up, just bring the drums back, you know. And
they kind of test your interest.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Without any headaches, you know.
Right.
So that's what my father did, and after 2 weeks, I almost burned a hole in that drum. I was playing the brushes and everything.
Yeah, here we are, 80 years later, baby. It's beautiful. Do you remember what that first kit was? The brand it wasn't Wurlitzer, I know.
No, it was Slingerland.
Oh wow.
That's a good name.
Do you remember the covering? What did it look like?
It was silver like.
Silver, yeah.
Silver and sparkly, you know. In the dark, they would sparkle.
Going.
Yeah.
Christmas. It's like Christmas morning.
It wasn't the most expensive drum, but it was a cheaper version of Slingerland. You know, it was like a beginner set.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So did your Uncle John mentored you and helped you out with learning the rudiments?
Showed me how to do the rolls, 16-bar rolls and quarter notes and eighth notes and all that kind of business. And control of the drumsticks, you know.
Yeah.
He taught me all that.
And you'd be out playing. You started playing out around the age of 12, 13? You were already out gigging and playing all night long?
For one thing, I had an advantage over most kids. My father played trumpet. He belonged to a lodge. Yeah. They called it the Eureka Lodge. And all his buddies belonged to it. All the guys from the West Indies, they belonged to it. And they would play for funerals, for neighborhood funerals. They'd play for funerals for the members of the band.
Sure.
It was the lodge consisted of not only men, women too, you know.
Right.
And it was a lodge that worked in the community and just helped the community.
That's beautiful.
So one of the guys, his name was Walter Harper. He was a tenor saxophone player. Okay. And he played all those calypsos and all that business. So my father talked to him. Yeah. And he hired me. Because they worked in this building that they had. On the weekend, they had music, you know, just like any other place.
Right.
And I worked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every week. You know?
That's great work.
And I played the calypsos. I was the first young guy around New York could play calypso. Yeah,
you know, I was curious about that, and you know, the background of your family, if Caribbean and calypso music really informed what became your style, and you know, if it was interweaved into stuff you did later at King, even, you know, some of it went into some of the hits.
That helped me quite a bit at King, because they didn't know anything about calypso at King Records. Yeah. You know, and a lot of things that I did, I used a calypso beat like for intros, and then I would go into a 4/4 beat, you know.
It's amazing. You just kind of grew up in the right place and time to such a melting pot, rich and diverse background to grow up within and develop a style.
I was very fortunate.
It's amazing.
The new music was being formed then.
Yeah.
In the
30s,
you know, and Miles he had something going. Carly Parker.
Yeah, well, that's funny.
I'm pushing a little far ahead.
No, I definitely want to ask you about Miles and Bird, because it looks like there's a story there. Were there particular drummers other than your Uncle John in the early days that you were paying attention to, whether it was seeing them in person in Harlem or, you know, listening to records?
A whole lot of drummers.
Yeah. So a lot of guys you were pulling from.
Yeah. It was a much cleaner scene than it is now, you know.
Yeah.
Because I noticed right now in Cincinnati, there are a lot of musicians. I mean, some of them, most of them from UC too.
Mm-hmm.
But they're hurting each other by the how can I put this to make it respectable? They go behind one
dog eat dog.
Yeah, and they'll work for less to the next guy to get the job.
Right. Hurting the market.
Yeah, that's not. I know this is not the first time this has happened.
Sure,
but it's prevalent in Cincinnati now.
Yeah. But you'd say in the late 20s, 30s, it was a healthier, more communal vibe.
Right.
People helping each other out and and keeping the standards high and the price right.
That's right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you're fresh out of your teens, and you started playing the Savoy Ballroom.
Yeah.
A legendary room. And with the likes of Arthur Prysock, Sonny Stitt.
Let me tell you how that came to be.
Sure.
I formed when you play music, you form a lot of friendships. You know.
That's right.
Because the guys are willing to help you. They were then. And I met a guy by the name of Steve Pullum. He was a trombone player, and he had a band, and he called it Manhattan Jazz, and about 7 pieces. And I used to rehearse with him every week. So I wasn't ready to go out and play with him, but I wanted to get prepared.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I would rehearse with him every week. Every week he'd have a rehearsal, and I just go in and rehearse maybe an hour or so, and then his regular drummer would take over. But
sure,
that's the way I learned how to play with a rhythm section.
And also was that about the same time you learned a lot of standards and that would pay off later.
Yeah, and working with that calypso tenor player, he played a lot of standards too. He not only played calypso, he played jazz, as they called it then. But it was raggedy, but he played the tunes of the day.
Yeah. You know? This sounds like your true formative years, and
I learned how to do that. I learned how to play for a crowd, not play real too loud. Play, you know.
Right.
That's important.
How to play a room,
yeah. Right now you have the rock musicians, and some of them are playing a little too loud.
Yeah, they don't. There's less and less dynamics.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you wind up. Well, I have here that you worked with Dizzy Gillespie at one point, or pretty early on.
Yeah, Diz came in town. He was living in New York, but one weekend he didn't have a drummer. He was working down on 52nd Street. So all the musicians used to hang out around the Apollo Theater.
Right.
Just like they did here years ago. They would hang out here in Cincinnati down on Mount Street. They would hang out, and if somebody needed a drummer or a piano player, they just go around that area and hire somebody.
Sure.
So I knew him because of Red Prysock. Red Prysock and his brother, the singer, were all from South Carolina.
Right.
So this knew Red real good, and I knew Red real good. So that's the way I got the weekend job with Dizzy Gillespie.
Wow.
And went to a rehearsal, and the same cymbals I have now, my big cymbal, 14-inch cymbal.
Wow.
He wanted me to put rivets in there, because he wanted the cymbal to ring, constantly ring. You know, when you play, he wanted his. It's a complete different sound.
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted. So he said, if you want the gig, man, he said you're gonna have to get there's some holes.
So did you oblige?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did it, and I'm still playing that same cymbal today.
That's fascinating. So you worked the Apollo with Dizzy?
Yeah.
That would be enough for any business card, I'd say, for a lifetime.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See what happened? How first time I played the Apollo, here I'm living in New York.
Yeah.
I come down here to Cincinnati to join a band.
Sure.
And we travel all around the world and go back to New York, my hometown, and play the Apollo. You talking about nervous? I was so nervous. See, and that stage at the Apollo, it's once everybody gets situated on the platform, the electric platform.
Yeah.
And it lurches ahead. It starts to move forward because it moves way out to the tip of the stage.
Yeah.
See, and nobody told me. So Tiny said, "Okay, let's play. 1, 2, 3, 4." I said, bang! I start playing, and with that, I fell backwards and fell off the stage.
Oh my goodness!
I didn't know what to do.
Right, first tune, right out of the gate. Yeah, you're on your back.
I just stood there for a moment. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty jarring. Yeah.
I heard the people gasp, because they thought I was hurt.
Oh goodness!
So I said, I'm gonna get back on the drums. I got back and climbed up on the drums.
Did they go wild after that?
Yeah. I was the man.
That's classic. What an amazing story.
I got back on and jumped in, caught up to what they were doing.
Yeah.
I got a standing ovation for that.
That's beautiful. I mean, through the years, I always thought of the Apollo as a pretty brutally honest crowd, one that, they'll kick you off if you're not cutting it, bring out the cane.
Oh, yeah, they'll do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me tell you what happened at I don't know if we're getting out of sync here.
Wow, it's flowing beautifully.
Okay. At the Apollo, when somebody new comes in, they got musicians sitting around. They have rehearsals down in the basement. And they have musicians that are capable of playing anything.
Yeah.
And they sit around. They wait for guys that can't cut it.
Professional backing band, ready to go.
Yeah. And they just, if you can't
that's
cut
intimidating in itself to know
Yeah,
there's a band that wants your gig that's right underneath you.
That's right. If you can't cut it,
they'll come out from under the floorboards.
Hire that guy for the week,
Oh, wow. I've never been in that situation.
Yeah. It's cold, but
wow.
It teaches you a lesson. Yeah.
Well, all this made you into the musician that you became.
It's not just, I'm going to learn how to play this. I'm going to learn how to play that tune, and I'm going to be able to get that girl.
Right.
It's not that kind of attitude.
Right. No, it's a different kind of pressure.
Serious.
Yeah,
you got to take care and play your instrument, play your music.
That brings up an idea that, I was kind of thinking of bringing up in a little bit, and that is, the paradigm, the model back then was a little bit different, where it seems like really it was just the cream that really rose to the top. As far as how things were structured, and now everything's kind of a little, wide open, and it's a different playing field. But that kind of pressure, that's how cool is, becomes diamonds, and I guess.
Right.
But so I'm not sure if I'm jumping around too much chronologically, but I have here that you attended the Manhattan School of Music for a while, for a moment,
Yeah. But see, my brother, he's 20 years younger than I am. Well, we wanted to be doctors. I wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah.
But in between my coming to Cincinnati and my younger brother going to school, and my father became ill. And I had to go back and forth to New York, and we just didn't have the money, so I dropped out.
Right.
See, and my brother became the doctor, the money that I had to send home to the family, we used that to send him to college, and he became a doctor.
Okay.
See?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to play, but also I heard of doctors being good musicians.
Well, yeah,
I know a couple of doctors now that are good musicians.
Yeah.
But
well, you supplied the world with a different kind of medicine.
Yeah.
So, I also read that you studied, and I'm not sure if this would have been at the Manhattan School of Music, but you even studied Western Indian music.
Yeah.
Was that at the School of Music?
Yeah. Well, I studied that with a West Indian drummer that my father introduced me to.
In Harlem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he told me how to play calypsos and all different kind of rhythms.
So I'm not sure where this falls in on the timeline or how old you were, but and I've heard of Minton's Playhouse and have recordings of some jazz guys playing there. But it sounds like when you were fairly young, you
17.
You were 17 and you played with Charlie Parker and Miles Davis.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
That's youth speaking, because I told myself I can play with these guys.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Sure.
So I had a buddy, and he and I would hang out all the time, 'cause he was an aspiring piano player too. So we would go around to as many jazz clubs as we could on a weekend and just listen, And we would go to Minton's Playhouse every Monday night because they had an open jam session.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, I'm gonna play tonight. I'm gonna ask you guys, can I play tonight?
Yeah.
He said, man, you know what you're doing? I said, yeah, I could do this.
Yeah. There's an old Hawaiian term. I think it's givem. Yeah. I'm going for it.
Yeah. And I asked Charlie Parker, because I said Miles he hadn't been in New York too often. And you know how they tell you Miles would turn his back to the audience? He would do that.
Yeah, that was
he wouldn't even talk to the other musicians, man.
Yeah, a little standoffish.
Yeah. So Miles didn't even look at me. I said, oh.
When you got to the bandstand, he look at you?
Charlie Parker said, yeah, young man, sure.
He was welcoming.
Yeah. He said, just sit down and get Kenny Clark was playing the drums,
Oh, right. Yeah.
So he looked at me and, like, who is he? You gotta think he is. That frightened me there, the way they looked at me, because they didn't welcome me at all.
I was curious what the interaction with those guys, if it was nurturing or if it was intimidating,
Charlie Parker was nurturing, but the other guys, Miles was just plain nasty. So anyway, I said, the hell with it, I'm going to play, Anyway, I sat there, got behind the drums, I got the sticks, tried the snare drum, see if there was enough snare on it and everything, I know Kenny Clark didn't like that at all.
Right. Well, he's messing with my gear. Yeah, he's messing with my thing.
So I looked over at Charlie Parker, and he does like this. Damn. So I remember that was the Cherokee,
Oh, yeah.
I said, oh, man, they played Cherokee on me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got through the intro.
Yeah.
And they started playing a solo, and by the time Charlie Parker got through, my leg felt like it was falling off.
It was way up?
Yeah.
Up tempo, yeah.
Oh, man.
Just blazing.
Yeah.
Were they putting you through the paces?
So they stopped.
Yeah.
And I was really embarrassed. But Charlie Parker was nice. He said, "It's all right, son." He said, "You keep playing. You get there."
It's like it was like some kind of rite of passage.
Yeah. He said, when you get yourself together, keep studying, keep trying.
Yeah.
Come back and you can play some more. Miles didn't even look at me.
Didn't give you any guidance or anything. So did you go back?
Yeah, I went back.
You went back
about a year later.
After some woodshedding?
Yeah, and I played it.
Yeah.
I played it.
How'd it go the second time?
Yeah, I played it.
Yeah.
Played it.
With Miles and Bird once again?
Well,
Or-
he wasn't any friendlier, but
Yeah.
at least he didn't turn his back on me. You know? When I walked off the stand, he did like that.
Oh, you got
Yeah.
a nod. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's the way.
That would be enough. A nod from Miles. I mean, that would be enough to retire for me. Yeah. Oh
you
my goodness.
talking about? I now that I think about it, I must have been out of my mind. You know.
Yeah, like you said,
I
you know,
just
you're
knew
young
that-
and ready, and
Yeah,
you know.
I just knew that I could do that, because I practiced with this band I told you about, you know, and we played tempos like that, and I didn't have any trouble. I just froze, you know.
Yeah, I would think you're as ready as anybody, but
Yeah.
so yeah, Minton's Playhouse, because I grew up, I became interested in jazz, I'd say in my early teens or so, along with the blues, and I had a recording live at Minton's Playhouse, and it was like a bootleg, you know, not great quality, but it was of Charlie Christian, you know, the great architect of jazz guitar. He influenced everybody like T-Bone Walker. So I know he was at Minton's, and that recording, I think it had Dizzy and Lionel Hampton and some other guys. But did you ever run into Charlie?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man.
Wow.
He was amazing at that time, you know, to hear somebody play like that.
Pure genius.
Yeah. He was something else.
How was he personally?
Nice, quiet man.
I imagine.
Yeah.
Probably.
A lot of jazz musicians were gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you notice how they dressed back then?
To the nines, right?
Yeah. They always had a tie on and everything.
Well, that must be where you get it. I mean, you came up in that.
I'm from that school.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You always.
That makes you feel like you're something, you know?
That's right. That's
and
right.
if you can play your instrument, you're king, right?
Yeah, I remember there's a musician from Dayton, Ohio, Roger Troutman.
Yeah.
He passed away a few years ago, and he'd always say, you know, dress to the nines, you know, all day. You know, you couldn't find him in casual clothes if you went over to his house at, you know, 2 p.m. He'd be ready for the gig, you know. Yeah, and there's something to that. There's definitely something to that.
Yeah. A lot of young guys, I think is a little different now, but I should say 5-6 years ago, they thought the funkier they looked, they thought they could play better.
Right.
You know, that made them.
That was cool for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so moving along, I don't know, I'm not sure where this falls, but you start working with Buddy Johnson.
Yeah. As a result of my friendship with Steve Pullen, the octet I was telling you about.
Okay. So would this be before you worked with Dizzy or after?
This before.
Oh, it's before. Okay.
Yeah.
So Buddy Johnson, he's the legendary band leader and pianist.
Yeah. He used to travel down. He used to come to Cincinnati. Travel all over the country, you know.
Yeah, he was
I
a big
didn't
deal.
necessarily like that band that much, you know, because they played dance music. They had some nice arrangements, you know, but it wasn't what I really wanted. I found out then what my calling was. I like smaller groups.
Yeah.
I don't care for big bands.
And when you're playing with Buddy Johnson, I'm guessing you guys were working the Savoy Ballroom when this happened, but you guys are trading off sets with Tiny Bradshaw.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Tiny's drummer had just left or was leaving, and he's looking for a guy to fill the spot. So he comes to you, giving you an invitation to come to Cincinnati.
Yeah. He told me he would call me, you know. I said, "Oh, this guy's not gonna call," you know.
Yeah.
But a little more than 6 months later, he called me. He himself, not his manager or anything. He called.
Called you personally, yeah.
Yeah. He asked me. He said, "I told you I was going to call you. You know, the drummer. His drummer's name was Eagle Eye Shields.
Right.
Yeah. And he, I came to Cincinnati. I told him, yeah, I'll come. I had to go and get permission from my mother and father, you know.
Did you have to tell Buddy Johnson as well, or had you already left his band?
Yeah, I told him.
He take it all right?
Yeah, he took it all right, you know, because maybe he probably didn't like me anyway. Yeah, because I wasn't too comfortable with the band. You know, they played in that tempo all the time. So, and the one thing about playing with a big band, and some big bands, they don't want you to do anything different in that arrangement. They want you to play it the same way.
Which can get kind
kicks and everything.
Gets monotonous after a while, and you were wanting to stretch out.
Right.
So yeah, life unfolds for you sometimes.
Yeah. So I got my drums together. I had some big bass drum, man. I had a fiber case.
Was it still the Slingerland or a new?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And fiber cases. And I don't know how I got the nerve to do that. I got on the Greyhound bus, with my drums.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And came down to Cincinnati, and I didn't even have, back in that day you had cases where you some guys would put roller skates wheels on the back, underneath,
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I was a young guy then. I carried everything.
I can handle it.
Yeah.
I can play with Bird and Miles, and I can carry my kids.
Right. Yeah, I had the New York attitude.
I love it.
A guy came to see me last night, a friend of mine from California. He said, "Man, you still got that New York attitude." That's what I liked about him.
That's great.
He's a Cincinnatian.
Yeah.
And I've been knowing him all these years since I've been here. I'll get back to that. And anyway, I came down to Cincinnati, got off the bus, and I got a cab. And it brought me to the Cotton Club, which is downtown at 6th and Mile.
That's right. It was in Newport, Kentucky? Or no, it was downtown.
Right here.
Okay, yeah.
6th and Mile. It's not here anymore because I-75, they rolled over at 6th and Mile, yeah. So, but that's where I joined the band. I rehearsed that afternoon and started playing that night.
So I got it. I grew up in the Midwest and went to New York for a while, or visited. And the first time I went there, it seemed like Oz. It seemed like the most enchanting, incredible place I'd ever been. It's the pinnacle of human consciousness, creativity, progression.
Yeah.
And I've always felt at home there. I felt really inspired. So what was it like for you coming from New York? What was your first impression of Cincinnati when you came here?
Oh, let me tell you this though. Before I came to Cincinnati, at the dinner table one night, that same night, I told my parents, I got something to ask you. And, I've been offered a job in Cincinnati with Tiny Bradshaw. My father said, "What?" He said, but then they said, do they have sidewalks in Cincinnati? And my mother said, do they have running
electricity?
Water? It's funny, but I told him, I don't know. But I'd like to go, Yeah. And he said, so my mother said, I don't know. It's a long way. I said, don't worry about it. I'll handle it, I said, this is something that I want to do. I've got to do this if I'm going to be a musician, So
you followed your intuition.
Yeah.
Something told you needed to do this.
But I came down here and did that, and opened up that night, and Tiny loved it. Yeah. And not too long after that, he said, I brought you down here for a reason. He said, I wanted to change. I heard you play, and I wanted to change the sound of my band.
Yeah.
Instead of being so raucous, I want to smooth the ends. Like you will make us more acceptable to some of the gigs we're gonna have to play.
Yeah.
He said, I want a smooth band.
More swing.
Yeah,
band?
more swing and more exciting,
Yeah.
but not as loud.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
not that heavy backbeat all the time.
Well,
He
that's
said, "Now I want you to play some backbeat, but I don't want you to play that heavy as Eagle Eye was playing it."
that leads me right into it because you meet Sid Nathan soon after this.
Yeah.
Was that
Well,
through
see,
Tiny?
Tiny Bradshaw was on the contract to King Records. I didn't know that.
He was already on contract.
Yeah. So he said he after about 3 weeks playing in the Cotton Club, he said, I told you, he said, I brought you down here for a reason. We're going into the recording studio. We're going to record right away. And I got a couple tunes that I wrote, and I think with you playing, we're going to have
Everything
a
was
gold
just unfolding
record,
fast and
So
yeah.
it happened. I got over to the studio, and we're playing soft.
That's right. I have that here, soft and
Yeah.
and you use brushes on that
Yeah.
track. I just listened to it today. It's
Yeah.
it's still such a great
Yeah.
track.
Yeah, he said, "I want you to use brush." I said, "God," I said, and with 7 pieces and you on me.
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah." He said, "You cut through,"
Yeah.
So I started playing, man, and it became a #1 hit.
#1 hit, soft.
We became not only they call it jump blues, but we became a jazz band all of a sudden.
Oh.
We played all the jazz clubs from here to California and back to New York.
But that was the special recipe. You bringing that swing down from New York and Harlem is what made that record.
Right.
So, I'm curious. I'm curious about how this went along with a lot of recordings. Their miking techniques back then in the studio. You're with this band and you're playing brushes. Did they have several microphones set up? Do you remember if they mic'd your snare?
They at times they mic'd the snare, at times they didn't.
And they just expected you to cut.
Yeah, they built a shed just for the drums.
A shed in the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we recorded just in the circle. It's all according to what kind of sound they wanted.
Well, that's what I love about these old recordings. They have a multi-dimensional sound.
Yeah.
Sometimes it sounds like the singer's right in front of you and the band's sort of, placed behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Where now everything's kind of one-dimensional and in your face, the way they mic things and record things now.
Right.
But I love the atmosphere of those old recordings.
Yeah.
They have a 3D element.
That's right. When I recorded this Please Come Home for Christmas with Charles Brown.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite recordings ever.
We did that all sitting around in a circle.
Right.
So
One microphone, maybe?
yeah.
Yeah. Old
Of course, the
mic,
singers had
his
their
own
own mic, but the band, the group, used one mic.
See, that's fascinating to me. That's the engineering aspect. Incredible.
We had some good engineers over at King Records.
Was that let me see if I have this right. The great Henry Glover.
Yeah.
Who was a Renaissance man, at King, talent scout, producer, arranger, engineer, and he wrote everything from jazz to country. I read that he wrote "Blues Stay Away From Me." Co-wrote that with the Delmore Brothers. Who these guys were like Grand Ole Opry guys. So. Very cool. He was in the mix. He seems he was a big deal at King.
Yeah, Sid Nathan was happy to have him.
Yeah.
Because Sid Nathan, he didn't know what he was doing. He had an ear for what he wanted, but
he had a general vision, maybe.
Yeah. But he couldn't. It had a hard time conveying it, and sometimes he irritated the musicians.
I imagine it probably. Would he come in with maybe a conceptual business mindset?
Yeah, right. And he thought he could psych a lot of the musicians, by you know how some musicians talk, they use a lot of profanity, but
Sure.
that's lovingly. It doesn't. It is not meant to.
There's a fine line.
Embarrass you, you know.
Right.
So he did. Of course, he didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, he would do that,
and it would hit wrong.
Nothing racial. Now he wouldn't allow that at all. He was smart enough to stay away from that kind of rhetoric, you know.
Right. Yeah. And I read that Sid, he hired a diverse staff at King.
Yeah.
Asian, Jewish, African American, but and he didn't tolerate any bigotry in the building.
Because many times, people would come in, and you could tell by the expression on their face what they were saying, and he'd bring it out loud. He said, "Well, I don't like that in here. Yeah. You don't come back here anymore.
Wipe it off the face of the earth. Get it out of here." Yeah. I was curious about how much Sid Nathan, influenced the music, and I imagine his influence was more on almost the pressure side, coming in and chomping on a cigar, and I guess there's something to that too, but where Henry was more of a musical presence,
and he could explain to you in musical terms what he wanted. That was the difference.
Yeah. I'm jumping around here just a little bit.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm responsible for that.
Oh, no, it's a beautiful thing. So we'll kind of dance around just some of these guys that you worked with and some of these legendary recordings and maybe, the genesis and the creation of some of these tunes. Wynonie Harris.
Yeah. Oh,
who's like...
Yeah, he was the guy.
He had it all.
Yeah,
right? He had the looks. He had the charisma.
Yeah, he could holler his roof, man.
Yeah.
He didn't need a mic really. He was so powerful, and what I liked was his timing. It's like I like to hear a singer like go over the 4 bars or the 8 bars. You don't have to sing it right on the bar, you don't have to do that.
You're kind of flirting with time.
Yeah. That's what I like about him. And it swung all the time.
I love listening to one.
A musician felt that you could just let go and play. Yeah. You didn't have to worry about keeping him in line. Because a drummer has to do that lots of times with singers. You have to keep them in line, because they'll go too far over the end or not far enough.
But he just had that natural groove.
Natural. But he was nasty talking too, He was a ladies' man.
Yeah. Well,
he was a star. He was the
real deal. And Wynonie, one of his favorite or most famous cuts, "Good Rockin' Tonight." This was even covered by Elvis Presley. Just iconic tune. And I was listening to that the other day, and I noticed there's hand claps on it.
Yeah.
So we must have got the whole band.
We started that too.
Yeah. Oh, that was where claps started.
Yeah. We started that. It's funny. I hear so many hand claps now on a lot of things. It started at King Records.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's a huge innovation in itself to me. That wound up on everything from the Beach Boys to the Beatles.
Right.
We'll kind of bounce around here. Hank Ballard and the Midnighters.
Yeah.
You recorded on the original The Twist.
Right.
Do you remember anything particular about that session, or what influenced, that beat? Or?
Yeah, well, we were having a hard time. We just couldn't get it off the ground for some reason or another. So Sid Nathan, that's one day he really embarrassed me. I guess he picked on me because he felt like it because the rest of the band wasn't doing it either,
Yeah.
But he came down out of the booth and said, "Philip, you got to play something different, play something different." So I had my drumsticks in my hand. I'm holding them like this. He came down and he grabbed the drumsticks like that, That made me mad as hell.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, he said, "I want you to do something like this." I said, Mr. Nathan, give me my drumsticks. I grabbed him by the side. I said, don't ever do that.
Yeah, there's a line here,
said,
you know.
don't do that.
Yeah, it's disrespectful.
I said, I'll do what you want, but don't do it. He said, well, I want you to play this. I said, okay, I'll play it, you know. And I did like that, and he went back up in the booth. And when he got back up there, he said, okay, let's go. He started playing. I played the same beat that I'd played before, but it had more fire.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to say that. See?
Let's get Henry out here to explain what's going on. It's a little more verve and tenacity and fire.
Yeah. It like every chorus that Hank sang, it felt like it was getting higher and bigger, and there was just more fire to it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what they wanted. By the time we got to that tenor solo, it was on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought about that when I was playing, because out on the road, that was the dance era.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have some fire in your playing, people wouldn't get up and dance.
That's right.
You got to make them feel that fire,
you
know, when you're playing live.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if rock and roll was even a term yet, but this seems to be early rock and roll.
Yeah.
That's
that, you know where that went. And Hank Ballard messed that up, because I don't know if he would have been alive. He probably wouldn't have lived anyway, because he was living it up like a star.
Yeah.
He was, you know.
Yeah. Temptation is great when you're famous and good looking and talented.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a nice guy on the radio, too. You know? Hank Ballard was a nice man, you know. Yeah. He'd come in. He said, I know you're a side man. He said, I want you to play on every one of my tunes. And he gave me $100 bill. I said, what's this for? He said, oh, man.
Which is a lot then. It's a lot now.
Yeah, I appreciate what you do, you know. Yeah. I played on everything he recorded over there. So he started Little Annie, had a baby, and all those tunes, you know.
Yeah, Sexy Ways.
Yeah.
My goodness. All right, so I'm going to kind of just go down the list of some of these legendary names that you worked with and helped make legendary. Mm-hmm. Little Willie John, who is one of my favorite vocalists personally of all time. I know he was a troubled soul, you know, he lived kind of on the wild side. He unfortunately died in prison at the age of 30.
He had a hang-up because he was a little guy, you know.
I could relate to that.
And you know, people were always pushing him around, and he would get tired.
Had a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah. So he would
came out and
things happen, you know, when you jump up in somebody's face, you know, and that's what he would do, you know. So he had to defend himself, and he went to jail for it.
He was a gifted man.
Yeah. Oh man, he could sing. We love for him to come in the recording too, because we said, well, we're not gonna be here all day today, because Willie could sing it, and we do that in one take, you know.
Wow.
He was great.
My goodness, and you recorded on the original Fever.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. When Peggy Lee made Fever.
Yeah.
She did a good job on it.
Yeah, it's a good cover.
DJ from Los Angeles called me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He said, Mr. Paul, I know you wonder why we're calling you, but I know you heard Peggy leave Fever, and we want to know what you think about it. Yeah. I said, what I think about it? I said, I think she did a good job.
Yeah.
He said, does it bother you that she covered that? I said, no. I mean, we cover songs all the time in the studio. You know, that's the name of the game in the recording.
That's right.
So he said, well, I'm happy to talk to you, because I haven't heard that before. You know, most of the people are kind of angry when a tune like that is is covered.
That's cool that he
comes
reached out
ahead.
to you and wanted to know your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you know, Little Willie John, influential singer. I mean, tunes like "Leave My Kitten Alone."
Mm-hmm.
You know, John Lennon of the Beatles was a big fan,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the Beatles covered that tune. I don't
Yeah.
know. Are you on "Leave My Kitten Alone"? Are you on that track?
I don't know if
You I imagine you probably are.
Yeah. You know, I have a discography, but it's not complete.
Right. And you've been on so many things.
Yeah.
It's probably hard to recall everything. But I know I'm shaking.
Yeah. I did that. Yeah.
It was a great tune.
Mm-hmm.
I Need Your Love So Bad.
Yeah.
You know, later covered by guitar heroes like Peter Green. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing beats those originals.
Yeah.
I definitely want to dig into what it was like to work with Freddie King.
Oh man.
I mean, the Texas guitar legend.
He was one of the natural gifted players I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
Like, he'd come in and he'd just stand up in the corner and like he's practicing.
Sure.
You know, and he'd be playing something and something to catch you and it sounded good. So the bass player started playing.
Yeah.
Along with her. You know, naturally, all that rhythm is happening. I was joining in and play. So Freddie King would say, "Yeah, man, that sounds pretty good. Let's record that."
And that's how the session went.
Yeah.
He would stroll in.
That's how Hideaway went.
Yeah. And so he'd stroll in. Would he pull out that, is it Gold Top Les Paul? Do you remember?
Yeah.
And it was a spontaneous sort of just feel thing. And
Right.
I got a tune here, and you can't. What a beautiful way to work.
Yeah.
You know, it's not it's not overcooked. It's in the moment.
And it was feel so good. We just keep playing over and over. And they cut it and say, "Well, that's it. We got to cut."
Oh, and those were hits.
Yeah.
Those turned into hits.
Yeah.
There's a lesson right there.
He's another guy. He would always wait for me. You know, if I was out of town or something, and if the band was out of town,
Freddie wanted you there
for me to come back in town. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was smart for him to wait.
Nice guy to work with, man.
Yeah.
Good musician,
That's what I've heard. Just
nice guy. I was shocked when I heard that he passed away.
It's a great loss. Yeah, he was way too young.
Yeah.
He worked hard.
Yeah, he must have had an illness of some kind.
I forget exactly what happened, but I know he was on the road constantly,
Yeah.
and you know.
That's what it takes. So, you know, if you get the tune that hits it,
He'll keep you out
gotta
there
get
working.
out and play.
Yeah. No, Freddie King.